Let me grab the link so I don't have to worry about that. Okay. How's everybody doing? I'm gonna pin it. Everybody's welcome to come up. I'm gonna try my best to do some working today. Okay. And so we're gonna review a video, one atheist versus 20 Christian women. Okay. It's all women, and it's over an hour. Let's see. I'm gonna do it like this. Yes, I'm gonna do it like that. I'm trying to think if I want to. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna do it like this. We're going. Okay. I have to set a few things up really quickly. Turn the light on. Let me see. Okay. Cool. Let's get back there. Thank you. Yeah, in a minute. 16. Okay. Ebbe, can I get some more mayonnaise? Here. You can put it in. Tax downstairs, I'm gonna bring them up here. Okay, bring a couple, cause even though it look good. Okay, thank you. Let's see. And I'm move this out the way, cause hubby just made me a steak sandwich. But I'm at my sewing station. Now I gotta go wash my hands, cause I don't want to touch any fabric. This up here. Okay. Do I have? Sorry about that. Let me just start the video. Okay. Let's get that started. I'm gonna put it here until I go wash my hands. I have white fabric I'm dealing with, y'all. I'm dealing with white fabric. She gonna read the prompt. We want to hear the prompt. uh, you put it where you put it. You need it? No. Put that was that. You got it. Yeah. Okay. You need me for something? No. Okay. Gotta make sure he okay, baby. Gotta make sure he okay. Let me see where I'm at so far. I think I'm still sharing it myself, right? Oh, yeah, that's okay. Okay, let's get to it. Uh-oh. I'm not sure if I hit sound. Let's do it again. With Zoom, I don't know why they will make it to where when you share, you have to hit something special to share the sound. You know, most people when they're sharing, they're gonna share the sound, but sometimes I forget, so I did. do it. It's just now. Okay, let's get to it.
Hi, I'm Casey.
Hi, I'm Alexis.
I'm Nikia.
Emily.
I'm Maya.
Hello. Okay. Because suffering exists, an all good, all powerful, all knowing deity cannot exist. So, to just break down each component of that, I see four premises and a conclusion. And all good means, in this case, I think, in my understanding of Christian theology, that is synonymous with all loving. So we can kind of interchange that if you're comfortable with that. But wanting the best for all and wanting to minimize or erase suffering in the case of God. All powerful, being able to do literally anything, no maximum. All knowing, knowing everything that has ever happened, knowing everything that's going to happen, knowing everything at once. Suffering is the conscious experience of pain or something that we don't want to happen. And because those first three, my statement is that those first three do not allow for logically the fourth one to exist, the suffering.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so because this question deals with morality, from your worldview, where do we get our sense of morality from?
I actually don't think it has.
Has Kyrie texted you back?
I don't want to talk about it.
How's the math test?
Don't.
Anything to do with morality, we can talk about that, but suffering is a conscious experience that can evolutionarily be explained away by not wanting. The opposite of suffering would be wanting to experience the experiences that would lead to the reproduction, essentially. So evolution can explain suffering by saying this, if we're harming each other, if we're not in communion with each other, if we're hurting the youth, right? That causes suffering, but it can be explained by it doesn't further life. I don't think this is specifically a question of morality. So yeah.
So then wouldn't it be true that the definition of suffering would be able to change based on your personal preference, based on what society deems as either good or bad? Where do we get this law, this standard that's innately in us? That's more so my question.
Sure. I do think that that taps into something really important, because whenever we talk about suffering, it's very, very personal to people. And that's not something that I feel comfortable speaking to for everyone. I'm 99, I'm agnostic, so I don't know anything for certain. I'm 99% certain that people, whatever they consider suffering, they don't enjoy it. But, there's the 1% odd ends here and there who might, who knows? So I think you're right that it is very personal and important.
I think your claim presupposes two things. First, I think it presupposes that suffering is objectively wrong, which I don't really understand from the atheistic viewpoint, but I also think it presupposes that the existence of suffering being A and the existence of the attributes of God being B are contradictory, and they're not, because A can exist and B can exist, and they're also not contradictory because a characteristic of God is suffering. He not only explains why we have.
Okay. Okay, so based on what I'm hearing, okay, suffering is not a bad thing, and God told us that we should suffer, and so it's not innately bad to suffer. Hey Siri, define the word suffer.
Suffer means experience or be subjected to something bad or unpleasant. Do you want to hear the remaining one?
Wait, I have two Siris talking at the same time. I apologize, y'all. And this one is low. Let me see what the.
Okay, I found this on the web.
No, I wasn't asking you, Siri. Okay, no.
And this one is a little.
Okay, wait a minute.
Check it out.
Stop.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, let me see. This one. To unlock it. This one probably gonna be louder than this one. Let me see. I'm not sure why you. Oh, I locked it. So it won't. Yeah, you loud as you can go, huh? That's crazy. The iPad though is louder, so we're gonna turn this. Hey Siri, define the word suffer.
suffer means. Experience, or be subjected to, something bad or unpleasant. Do you want to hear the remaining one?
Yes.
Suffer is an archaic term. It means tolerate.
Okay. So it is a bad thing. And so I guess I just wanted to point that out because based on what that woman said, that suffer is not innately a bad thing. And also that God says that we will suffer and that we should suffer. And I thought the reasoning, the biblical reason that Jesus was, the son was brought down was to end suffering, so people, so we can be forgiven for our sins, and also like he suffered on our behalf. Um, so I don't, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I'm not a biblical, um, I don't know much about the Bible that much, There's bits and pieces that I remember because, of course, just like lots of people went to church as a kid. Um, I did go to Sunday school as a kid. Um, yeah, but so apparently suffering is something that we should be doing. Mm.
Have suffering because of sin in Genesis, but he also explains how to deal with suffering, why there is suffering, and he embodies suffering. When Christ came to earth, he took on the most severe form of suffering that any of us could ever comprehend. I mean, not only living his life free of sin when sin was all around him, so being involved in his creation day to day, that was a form of internal suffering that he had to deal with, a grieving of his heart. And then you see the suffering of his crucifixion. He was beaten, mocked, beard hair ripped out, but I think we also don't even understand the complexity of that beating, of that crucifixion. He was flogged with a whip that had pieces of glass on the end of it, among other sharp things, and his flesh was ripped open, nervous system exposed. I mean, medical examiners have done extensive research on this, on the crucifixion, what it would have caused. Flesh, out, nervous system out, bones exposed, bones broken, carrying
That does contradict with suffering existing.
I'm sorry.
contradictory to himself in his small nails, but nails, bones exposed, bones broken, carrying a 300.
Okay. So she's mentioning that people have done studies on the description in the Bible on, what they did to him. But she's not mentioning that when they did those studies, they were saying that it possibly did not happen. Like he wouldn't have survived all of that. Nerve endings out, bones crushing, the big huge nails in the feet and the hands, carrying this big cross from one place to another, and so she's explaining this, and then she mentions that, people have mentioned this, right? They But she's not saying what the findings are of that. Right. So let's hear her say that again, so you can hear what I'm talking about.
Done extensive research on this, on the crucifixion.
On the research, they've done research on the crucifixion, and they found that it's a possibility that did not happen. She's not gonna mention that though. Here we go. Damn,
I'm hungry.
We should order some fried chicken.
We need to touch alone.
Warring hands over chicken.
Because suffering exists, and all good, all powerful, all knowing deity can
Of suffering being A and the existence of the attributes of God being B are contradictory, and they're not, because A can exist and B can exist, and they're also not contradictory because a characteristic of God is suffering. he not only explains why we have suffering because of sin in Genesis, but he also explains how to deal with suffering, why there is suffering, and he embodies suffering. When Christ came to earth, he took on the most severe form of suffering that any of us could ever comprehend. I mean, not only living his life free of sin when sin was all around him, so being involved in his creation day to day, that was a form of internal suffering that he had to deal with, a grieving of his heart. And then you see the suffering of his crucifixion. He was beaten, mocked, beard hair ripped out, but I think we also don't even understand the complexity of that beating, of that crucifixion. He was flogged with a whip that had pieces of glass on the end of it, among other sharp things, and his flesh was ripped open, nervous system exposed. I mean, medical examiners have done extensive research on this, on the crucifixion, what it would have caused. Flesh, out, nervous system out, bones exposed, bones broken, carrying a 300-pound cross over a mile up to where he was crucified.
300 pounds over a mile on his back by himself. Okay. And yes, and it wouldn't have happened. They found that it just wouldn't have been able to survive it. It wouldn't have been able to happen the way the Bible says that it happened. Okay.
And then the nails, not small nails, but nails, probably railroad size, into his hands and his feet. And he did that out of love. So I think that if you look to the Bible and you look to God, I don't think that suffering is something that he deems as contradictory to himself in his existence.
Okay, a few things here. So at the beginning, I gave a very brief synopsis of what I was working with as far as all good / all loving, which is to erase as much suffering as possible. And you do have to put all three of the characteristics of God according to the Christian definition of God, which is all good, all powerful, all knowing. So not just able to, but wants to. That does contradict with suffering existing. The other thing about Jesus's crucifixion, whether or not that happened isn't really part of the prompt. I will say that this is a case of I'm not going to be the one to compare the suffering of anyone to the people who are suffering right here, right now, who are more innocent than an adult man, who are children going through extremely excruciating circumstances. The kind of comparison of suffering I am going to push back on for the sake of people in this world right now who are going through real suffering.
I think that's a good point, but I would argue that children are not more innocent than Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is
I would disagree with
sinless.
that strongly.
Well, we're all sinners,
Wow, she said children are not more innocent than Jesus Christ. So how do a child just entering into the world, what is their sin and what are they guilty of? Even before they all they've done is taken a breath. And now, because I thought that's why they said that he came in order to wash away the sins, and therefore that baby hasn't done anything, so it has no sin. But then people say, well, it was born in sin. What you mean born in sin? Like the mother and the father got together to do the thing that God put us here to do based on the Bible, right? In order to keep humanity going. And so how is that sinful? And I be having lots of questions for religious people. There's one thing, if you nothing wrong with you believing in what you believe in and things like that. But when your belief is in text, right? The Bible, when it's in text where everybody can read it and comprehend, and then it just seems so like a Harry Potter, Powder, Powder, how you say it? Potter, Harry Potter type of thing, right? Something in fantasy, something not real, just that. And that's what I think of the Bible. I think I've said that so many times. I think the Bible is a group of children's stories, and before they came up with the children's stories to educate children, whether they was uh, trying to warn them of this big bad wolf, right? That that might be out there, and this guy and his little boy who cries wolf, which is lying, right? Lying. Um, those stories have meaning that helps you, guide you with your life, right? And I think that's what the Bible is, but we don't think that the boy that cried wolf story is a real story that really happened. We don't, and we don't base our life around it, but millions and millions of people base their life around the Bible. Um, yeah. And so your story got to make sense if you want people to just blindly do what you call blind faith. If it makes sense, like if I read it and I can see, yeah, that makes sense, then I could take that leap of faith. But I cannot take a leap of faith when it looks like it's just fairy tales. Okay? Yeah, fairy tales. So it was easy for me to be a Christian when I thought that the Bible was just a guide, you know? As soon as I realized people were taking the Bible literal, and that's what they was telling me that's what I should do, that's what we should do, then that's when it's like I start scratching my head and I'm thinking, wait, what? I didn't know that's what you was telling me. But in that case, we no. Okay. I'm not crazy. And so no. Um, so it's very hard for me to be delusional when I know, you know. Yeah. So here we go.
Oh, you
Children
don't
are.
have, well, you don't have to teach a child how to do wrong. You have to teach a child to do what is right from the get-go. Don't hit, don't lie, because it's innately in them to do those things.
I don't
Jesus
think that means that they're deserving of suffering. And I
Well, I'm
also
not
don't
talking
think,
about deserving.
again, I will not back down on children being more innocent than any adult, period.
I love these points that you're making. I think this is such a big deal because many people feel this way, Christians and non-Christians. And I think there's two things really happening here. We're talking about suffering in general. I love the point that she made, and that it is a part of the human experience, a part of what we find in the scriptures. And there's actually an encouragement of valuing that suffering, and as opposed to, it's not good, I'm suffering, I must be far from God. It's actually the opposite, where we are to value suffering so that it can produce things like character, hope, perseverance. So there's that one side, I think, that the Bible.
Or they be stretching, baby. It's such a stretch. Okay, because she was just saying both the women so far have said some ridiculous things that the woman did say. That's not what the prompt says. This woman is saying, look, if this God is all knowing, all powerful, why is there suffering? Why is there suffering going on? Especially now that babies was mentioned, especially with babies born with issues where they won't even survive past, 5 years old, 10 years old, just suffering. And even in their care, they're suffering even within the care, right? And what I mean by that is if they have cancer, leukemia, or anything like that, then the cure is making them suffer even just as much as, the cancer itself. So if they got to go through chemo and different things like that, that's the saddest thing to me when I see them babies, and I haven't seen them in person, right? It's on TV, on the commercials and different things like that. But it makes me tear up. Okay, it makes me tear up. Watching a little baby or kid suffering. Okay. So yeah.
Shows that it's valuable to value suffering. I think the other side is the repercussions of free will. I think God being all loving, all good, he created his children and he gives us that free will to decide. So yes, if and because he's not going to control us all and make us machines, he is going to allow us to build our life. And fortunately and unfortunately, you have the bad and the good that comes with it. So it does show him as a good and loving. And if he says he gives us free will, he's going to follow through with that. And I think that also shows his love for his people, that he trusts us for the
Trust us.
better and the worse of that. And yes, there's so much suffering and there's so much injustice. I don't believe that it's God, that it's proof that God doesn't exist.
What? What? Oh Lord. Yeah, not until you have the suffering happening to you, then you may question, like, why me? Um, why is your child this way? Why are you suffering when you've done nothing but good? And then there's many people who have left the church behind, because like you, it's easy to think that he's a loving God up until something tragic happens to the innocent. But more importantly to me, when I talk about innocence, I'm talking about the children, right? When something happened to a child is the one, because you never know I may have done something in my past, or that may have warranted uh, what happens to me. But let's talk about the children, though. What could the child have done? And if we saying that what the child is going to be punished for that in which their parents done, that's a whole nother argument. And then is that a loving God? Is that a loving God who will hold innocent uh the innocent person who wasn't even born when it happened, they gonna suffer the pain of what their parents did. And slavery is one of the reasons why, for me, I think that there's no God, not the type of God that people are talking about. You know, slavery, and then we could start tracing slavery into Jim Crow and things like that. And then they convinced us that, well, we deserve that, okay, because somewhere in our line we did something wrong, right? Somewhere in our line, our skin was changed to a certain color, and it depends on what Bible. Man, oh my goodness, I don't understand Black people in particular going with that Bible. Oh man, whoo! And then people will be like, "Well, I don't want to go with uh, identity politics." They learned that word, and then they just run with that. What that? Yes, I'm sorry, but in the Bible, we have the Jewish people, we have, they have different people, and anyway, let me just let this shit play. I really don't want to talk much, but I can't just let it run straight through. We're going, let's change it up a little bit by making it a little faster, but just a tad bit, because I do want to hear what they have to say. um I'm having a hard time seeing from this position where I'm at here. And then I gotta find playback speed. Here we go. Let me just do it a little faster. 1.5, y'all. Let's try 1, 2, 3. Let's see how that works.
I believe that it's proof that God is all loving and he is allowing
Ooh.
leadership within his people. And so we're seeing that play out. I would say it's more dangerous to not have the God of the Bible, because if someone says, I actually believe that it's good to harm children, and that's their belief and they have no basis or they have no foundation, I think that's where it can get really murky. But I think it's two separate things. And I think there is a value to suffering, so that I believe that, and what I see in the scriptures is it leads us to God. It leads us to look up. It leads us to go, why is this happening? And I think instead of trying to prove that they're more than likely he doesn't exist, I think instead it should hopefully make us to want to experience this true God that is all loving, that is all good. I think that's where the direction should actually go. So
Yeah, so you brought up a lot of interesting points. Free will is really interesting, so we can get back to that.
Bring your agent into Monday.com. Your Claude, ChatGPT, and Copilot agents working side.
But the value of suffering is tricky. I think we need to be really careful when we make assertions that there should be value in suffering. I don't know if that's appropriate to tell people who are suffering. Viktor Frankl comes to mind, who was a survivor of the Holocaust. He wrote an entire book and developed logotherapy, which is the process of finding meaning in suffering. There is that possibility. I do think that can be really powerful, because you're right that suffering exists. And I think it can be really transformative and important whenever we all go through that journey of how can I take this harm, this suffering, and transmute it into something better for the collective. I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of the human experience. I'm literally getting chills right now. The concern I have is that the message of saying you should value your suffering, not by you, certainly not by you, has been manipulated so intensely to keep people complacent, compliant, and controlled. So I just wanted to bring that up for anyone watching who is going through suffering. There could be a light at the end of the tunnel. That does not, I don't find it appropriate to say that, but your suffering is good. It can be if they want it to be. Going back to, you were kind of talking about whether or not I think a deity exists. I don't think that's really part of what I was saying with the prompt. I was saying that maybe it's better to say, if a creator being exists, we already talked about all of that earlier, but if one exists, all good, all powerful, and all knowing does not make sense with so much suffering. I think we're kind of brushing over the all powerful part, because I think there are ways, if free will exists, for it's almost like inappropriate to suggest that an all-powerful being couldn't possibly design a life and a universe where the suffering is without the scale of suffering that we see. I mean, some of this stuff, it's just asinine and unnecessary. There's no reason for animals to suffer. There's no reason for children to suffer. They're not learning from their mistakes. They're children. Animals aren't learning from their mistakes, even from my understanding of the Christian worldview. Animals don't have souls. So where's the redemption there? And I understand the fallen world argument, but going back to the prompt, I still don't think that those three characteristics of a deity make sense with the scope and scale of suffering that we see.
Yes. Thank you so much for choosing this prompt. I relate to it very personally. Growing up in a very dysfunctional home, being a Black woman, and being a healthcare provider, I see suffering throughout my life. I do not it seems like there's a gap between suffering and saying that these characteristics can't be true for God. And I say that because when God created Earth, when he created the universe, he created it good. Everything was going according to his plan, and he did give us free will. He is a just God, an all-powerful God, all-loving God. However, because of our free will, we did make a choice. Adam and Eve did. And that not only affected humans, but creation in and of itself. So there, we invited dysfunction in that way. And then suffering is very, very personal, like you said.
I think about that, what she just said. So she decided to go back, and if I'm correct, she goes back even before Jesus came down, right? So she says that Adam and Eve is the reason why we have suffrage, that they let suffering into the world with what they did. But if I'm correct, didn't Jesus come down in order to clear all of those things up? And what I mean by clear it up, like to correct anything that was going on wrong. So we didn't have to, sacrifice anyone anymore for the gods and things like that they were doing before. He came down in order for us to no longer have to do that. That's based on what I've heard people say through years. And so while the other one that takes is that suffering is gladly and proudly something that we should just accept. The other one turns the same Christian, just a different person. Right, then take another avenue. And they said, well, hey, what they did in the beginning, what Adam and Eve did in the beginning will follow humankind forever. And then that will go back to, is he a just God? Like, why would he hold everybody after responsible for what someone did before? Okay. So that goes away with the just, there we go.
He said, I just do not want to understate that. And we have books like Job where he's suffering because Satan wanted to prove a point that the only reason why Job loved God was because good things were happening to him. And we see that Job still loved God even when he was suffering so much. He lost everything. And it's not an award for him to get double what he got back. But I think we need to realize the point where God actually, he didn't answer his question directly about why he was suffering. He actually asked, he just started telling him about the universe. He's like, I can see everything. You're not going to understand everything. That does not mean suffering is good, but I see everything and that I know I can restore everything. And despite what you're going through, I know that you're not suffering because you're a bad person. He even rebuked Job's friends for saying it was as a consequence of something he did. Sometimes suffering happens because.
Now we're gonna be clear. If you think about humankind, right? Humankind, the people who are in charge, the people who are in charge, they have the wealth, they have the power, right? Because they want to have the power. Some of those people are cruel, right? They're cruel. They want you to believe that if I come and burn your house down and take your wife, then yeah, that's okay. Because if you believe in a God, it'll be your suffering, right? You'll suffer from what I'm gonna do to you, but just know that you got God and it's a part of it. So of course the people who want to do injustice, don't want to be just, they will convince you some kind of way that it's okay. Unfairness is okay. Because unfairness just means that, you love me. As long as you love me, everything will be okay. Let them people do what they're doing and just pray. Pray. All you got to do is pray. And, and just, that's all you can do. That's all you should even attempt to do is pray. And that's what a lot of people do. Like, the stories of them waiting for actually God to really show up when maybe God have sent them people there, right? But you're waiting on God. You're waiting on God. I use that as an example because you better have some friends, baby, and some people, some humans who are willing to come and possibly help you out if you can't do it yourself. Because if you're waiting on anybody else called God to come, you're going to be waiting all of eternity. Okay? And so when you get up and you do it yourself, okay, you blame it on God. But what if you started to just believe in yourself? And you can believe that you are God. You are a God. But you give all the credit and the glory to somebody else. Go ahead.
There's dysfunction entered into the world because of sin. It's not always a cause and effect. Like you did something wrong, now you're going to suffer. And then we have books like Ecclesiastes that specifically say, it is not fair. I've done everything right and I'm still suffering. There's people out there doing things that are bad and they get good things. So why does this make sense? Again, it's because there's dysfunction in this world and we still have people making choices out there. So this started in the beginning and it isn't going to be perfect all the way through. And that does not say that God isn't good. God is all powerful. It means things will work out. Not all the time, not the way we think it, but there is dysfunction that we cannot control. And although he's all powerful, he's not going to take away our.
Things will work out. You just got to believe that. It's all good. Things will work out. And then she had to say, not all the time. That's what the people who want to get over on you, that's what they want. They love it when you believe in God. They love it. You know, like most of the people getting scammed, all kinds of things that's going on. These people believe in God. They use that. They use the thought that you believe in God. They know that you believe in God, and now they can start asking you. They're gonna lock the doors. We're gonna lock the doors until I get at least $1 million. There's like 750 people in this building, and there's another, couple of thousand watching on TV. Me as I praise, and I need y'all to give me $1 million. Lock them doors. Lock them doors. I know you got it. I know you got it. Give us your rent money. We know rent is running a few $1,000s. You just give us your rent money, and God will provide. God will provide. I need a new plane because the one I got is older, and I need to be, these motherfuckers not shit for Cadillacs no more, Lincolns and shit no more. These motherfuckers ask for airplanes. Okay? They locking doors. They got ATMs in there, and they don't want no dollar. You don't jingle no change in that plate. You know, the what you could spare because you still got to take care of your family. They say no, no, no. You give us the money because God will, with that money that you give right now, that you work many hours to even get. God will provide if you provide it to me. And I'm saying he the minister, he the one closer to God. Why he not getting it from God? That 10%, why God not giving it to him directly? She.
Our free will, and he's going to let things play out the way they are. And there's going to be consequences, good or bad, for our choices, personally and for others. And it reflects not only in our time, but throughout time. And then we have Psalms where we have David and other people just crying out to God. So those laments is saying that God doesn't ignore suffering. He's not saying necessarily that it's good. He acknowledges it. He honors us, and that he lets us know that he's present. And my whole point of all of this is that his characteristics are real despite there being bad things in this world. And I feel like there is a missing piece as to, first of all, why we think suffering is bad. There has to be morality behind that. It's some objective truth that we think it's bad. Otherwise, why are we even talking about it?
Can't you have a law in place without suffering being behind it? Not to these Christians though, right? Because there's laws that are in place, and you know what the law is, so you follow the law. But they're saying you suffer because through your suffering, that's when you will get your morality. So I gotta suffer first so I can learn something. Is that what? Because that's what it sounds like she's saying. You learn through your suffering. Baby, I'm talking about brainwashed is great. Listen, I'm using the word brainwashed. Yes, these people are brainwashed. Okay, I'm not talking about every Christian. I'm talking about the ones who speaking. Though. Okay, as you can see, they don't even agree from each other, right? Because one says suffering is a good thing. The other, one person said suffering could mean good. It's not necessarily bad. The others seem like they like suffering. Yeah, suffering is not good, but it's okay. God say you should suffer. Wow, I don't even know.
If suffering is something that's just not physiological, just not neurological, as in us experiencing pain, it's there for a reason. And that's why I find Christianity so compelling, is that it explains why it's here. It gives us hope to stop it for ourselves and for others around us, and that there's redemption coming in the future. Thank you.
I think to that, I would say a few things here. If the trade-off, according to this argument, for free will, which is the only reason I've heard that God has this all-powerful, all-knowing, all-good creator being, not just allows, but because is all-powerful, brought into existence our suffering, doesn't just allow, brought into existence the entirety of this universe, which includes suffering, and perpetuates it continuously, I would like to just go on record and say, you can have my free will. I do not consider that to be a sufficient trade-off. I don't necessarily think that that's the case. I'm just saying if that were the case, you can have my free will. I would rather be a robot than watch the atrocities that are happening. That's a personal take. Again, we're all kind of bringing our personal takes into this. And then I still don't see how, if we're going back to the all-powerful and all-knowing aspect, how that is yet a justification. If you're saying there's absolutely no way, two things. If you're saying that absolutely no way that an all-powerful deity could allow for free will, create us with free will to choose him, or to have like a smaller scope of suffering, right? A smaller way of understanding redemption than all of this destruction, what you call dysfunction, which is, I mean, the vast majority of the universe, the vast majority of life as we know it is suffering. And so
if you're a first or second year med student taking anatomy and you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed because of how much information there is to learn,
I don't know if the scale is really balanced there but don't worry, there will be redemption. I don't see that. Maybe I'm missing something. But then on the other side, I don't know if you kind of alluded to it or someone did, but us not understanding the plan doesn't really mean that there is one. So that's kind of what I would say to that.
I would like to say that I don't think God having all of the power to destroy suffering negates that. I think that it shows his patience, because if he were to perform perfect justice for all of the people that perpetuate that suffering, who commit child abuse, murder, all of that, his wrath would come and come quickly. And I think that people would be very much regretful of wishing that perfect justice would come. And I think that with God knowing everything, him being all-knowing doesn't mean causality. I could, know that something is going to happen in the next 24 hours. That doesn't make me the perpetuator of that. God is not the author of sin. So anything that occurs because of sin, he is not to be blamed for that. I think that
he most definitely is the author of sin, right? If he's all knowing, and they say he knows things before we know it, before it's done, right? And he allows someone to do it. He's the author of the sin. What are they talking about? You got to understand what I'm hearing these people say. Basically, hearing them say that sin is necessary. Sin is here. It is necessary. Because what we're saying is, hey, if God knows that people is going to commit some sinful behaviors, he knows it before. Probably before they're born, remember? He knows all. He can prevent it, right? And if he don't prevent it, then and he has the power to prevent it. She's talking about just because she knows something may happen doesn't mean she's the author of it. Yes, you're not the author of it because you don't have the power to prevent it. You don't have the power to stop it. Okay, but if you did have the power to stop it, like if you knew that you were gonna have a child, and the child, that the future of that child is he or she gonna be a murderer, right? Then most of us, if we know that our child will be a murderer, there will be a shitload of people not having that child. They will make the conscious decision. They're not going to have any children. If I knew that, I would have a child who would end up being a murderer. Like if I knew, then yes, what I am saying is not only I, but a lot of people will opt out. I'm having problems with It's a fabric that I bought. It's the pink one. Okay. And it's really bad when I'm sewing on a sewing machine. I just want maybe one more of these, so I'm gonna sew it by hand. Yeah, don't there's some you cannot believe it or not, but there's some fabrics that just are terrible. Terrible. Okay. This was when I think about it, it was fairly cheap, which is my fault, right? It was my fault. I saw it was pretty color that I wanted, and it was cheap, and I was like, let me get it. Um, it feels so good, but I'm assuming that it's possibly cotton mixed with plastic, because it's even hard for me to sew it by hand. Of course, if it's hard for me to sew it, get the needle in this fabric, and you would think, look how light is. I mean, it's lightweight, but that's what the plastic fabric is. That's why people like it until they wear it. It's really light and thin. It's really hard to sew through that. Really hard to punch through that. And it's punching through, but it's skipping stitches. It has my sewing machine skipping stitches. Okay. I'm gonna leave that alone. I think I have two, maybe three of them. That gonna have to be enough for that color. Because I can't do it. Anyway, let's get back to this. That's me rambling. Y'all know listen, I have to talk. I wish I could just run this through and we be here. But I can't do that. Okay, that would be me just grabbing their content and throwing it inside me sewing. Okay. So I do have to comment on it.
That we can definitely question, even as Christians, God, why would you allow this? You know what I mean? But it does go back to redemption. It does go back to Jesus Christ, because he wishes that none should perish, but all should come to repentance. And he is giving mankind time to repent, and he's extending that grace, and he will perform perfect justice against those things that cause suffering or people.
So with you saying redemption in the cross, I want to get to that, because this is the basis of suffering. We have to grasp I guess my question for you before I even get into
10th grade is when smart parents start test prep. By junior year, it's actually too late to do this.
get into this. What is the hope behind suffering? What is the reason for suffering from your worldview?
I don't think it's appropriate for me to say why anyone else's suffering has meaning. That's not the stance I'm taking. I can find my own meaning in my own suffering, and I do think it is possible for people to create and find and share their meaning in their own suffering. But I'm not going to make a blanket statement like that. I don't think it's appropriate.
Christianity has the answer to why we suffer, and it is because anything evil that goes against God's holy nature, that is what evil is. Anything that goes against God's holy nature, because he is holy, all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving, anything that goes against him is horrific. It's what we see here on earth. It is blatant evil. But because we made that choice, humanity made that choice to go against God's nature and God's character, this is the repercussion of that. But what Christianity does is it gives us a hope. I asked you what your hope is. You have your own personal hope. Jesus offers a hope for everybody who would believe that if you would just confess with your mouth and believe with your heart that he is Lord, that you would not just on this earth have a band-aid on suffering, but that to come there would be an earth. You think that there should be an earth with no crying, no mourning, no tears? That is to come. That is a promise of Christianity, that there will be a time when there is no more mourning. He will wipe every tear from our eye. There is no more pain that we feel. But it boggles me. You know that there's something in you that says this is wrong, that this is right. Where does that come from? Who gave you that? Do you think because we're cells and we're atoms that it's just here? No, God gave you that desire of your heart to stand up for things that are unjust, to be angry when you see the persecution of children. But if we are image bearers of him, how much more does he also share that anger for our suffering? But he didn't throw up his hands and say, well, figure it out, humanity. He became suffering for us. Where there is deep, where you go against God, and there is a
See, she said he became suffering for us, because that's what they believe. But right now they having a discussion, and they're saying that they're admitting that we are suffering in many ways. So how did he decide to suffer for us if we're still suffering? They talk in circles. Okay. And you got to usually catch them. That's why, when you have a conversation, when people say, let me finish, you got to, if you don't catch them right when they make the statements that is contradictory to what they've already said prior, then they will claim that they didn't do that. They didn't say that, or, they just want to be able to just repeat the same thing over and over again, even if it makes no sense. Now, I'm not here to change anybody's perspective on your religion, but remember, I am actually, they are referring to the Bible, the biblical text. Okay. And yeah, and from my understanding, and I don't know it to be true, and I don't know it not to be true, that there are, other Bibles out there, and so then that comes, that was the Bible that I learned from. Was that correct Bible? Was that the incorrect Bible? It's a whole nother discussion in itself. Okay. Because they said the word is the word, and the word is always the word. And and then when I go to say, well, which word, like which Bible, and then there's only one Bible. Well, that's not factual. It's not just only one Bible. Here we go.
A deep, Lord Jesus, give me the word. When you go against God, he takes that serious because he's just. And because he is just, there had to be a repercussion for what humanity chose. He didn't just decide to throw up his hands. Like I said, he became both the judge and the judged in what he did on the cross.
He became the judge and the judged. So if that's true, if he became the judge and the judge, the judge for what he did on the cross, then that means he put himself on that cross based on what she said. And I don't think I think these people are just brainwashed because they just say anything. He was the judge. If he was the judge, that means he condemned himself, especially if he was the one judged. He judged himself. He condemned himself. And so everything that happened at that time was him doing it. Not only that, but he judged himself. He was all knowing, right? And then people will be like, but that was Jesus. And you talking about God. Oh no, I thought he's both the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. For the most part, they use interchangeably. Okay? They use interchangeably. Let me see if he never text me back to see if it worked or not. Oh no, okay. So people use God and Jesus interchangeably so much. It be so much that I don't because if they talking about God, but then they talking about what he did on sacrificing himself. They do it so much that I get confused. Like, because then they'll then tell me, "Oh, you're talking about Jesus. You're not talking about God." That's what they'll do. They'll then separate them depending on what you say, and then and then so now they separated them, and then bam, boom, they'll put them back together. The next sentence, just because they just there to try to prove you wrong. It cannot with a circular conversations when it comes to the Bible. I like listening I love when people come up who's very knowledgeable and they start speaking because I listen. I learn a lot of things that I may not have known in the details, right? Because it's been very, very long since I've gone to church and studied, but I love when people come up and they're knowledgeable, but I try my best not to ask questions because the questions end up anyway, they can't answer them, basically. Just like these ones. Anyway, let's get through this.
So all I can say, even if you never just hear anything out, I would say look back on the cross. You studied theology, you went to school for it, But I would almost say that sometimes our knowledge and our desire for knowledge gets in the way of what the Lord wants to do in your heart.
And this is what's crazy, because that woman is not there, even though she's the atheist. They know she's an atheist because she announced that, right? But she's not attacking them. She's not telling them that they don't know what they don't know. But the Christians love to do that shit. They love to do that. Now they telling them, you studied this, because that's why she's able to have the conversation. But what I would say is that you need to put your heart in it. You need to do this. You need to do this. Oh, they do it all the time, baby. Christians are the nastiest mofos out here. They claim that they're Christians and they know they shouldn't be judging, because there's only one person who's going to judge you, and they're going to be on Judgment Day. And yet all they do is judge. Soon as they find out you're atheist, if you far right or far left, like it don't even matter, right? They judge that. Yeah, they judge that right up.
So that is all I have to say. Look to the cross. The cross is the reason why we have redemption for the very evil that is here on the world.
It's very evident that you have a lot of conviction with what you're saying, and that it means a lot to you, and that it perhaps is transformative for you. And I think that matters. And I'm certainly not trying to take that away from you. I think everything you said, if that means something to you, that's great. And I want that for you. I want your well-being. I'm not really open or available to suggestions or any assumptions about me or what's in my heart. I don't think that's appropriate, because I'm not doing that to anyone here. So going back to the prompt, not
Right. Yes, I'm glad she picked up on that. Okay, she picked up on that, because she went in her bag, baby, to tell her what she thinks she needs to do. She even assumed that the woman went to church for whatever, and then she went into her bag and started throwing insult, kind of like, I don't know, like some people said, Mom, she didn't insult her. Yes, listen, if somebody starts telling you that what you believe that is opposite of what they believe is wrong, and they get all high and mighty with it, yes, they're insulting her. When she perceived the fact that she can even suggest what she does with her life. So yes, some people be like, I didn't, that wasn't an insult. Okay. She ain't cursed or nothing like that, but I'll be damned if somebody could come and think they know my life and suggest that I do something other than what I'm doing without me asking, when you already know where I stand.
much of what you were talking about had to do with why suffering exists.
Suffering exists because
I wasn't
evil
finished. I wasn't finished.
is in
So
the
I wasn't
world
finished.
by our choice. That's
Okay.
why suffering exists.
So that is not enough for me. I don't think that that's enough of an explanation for the scale of why children are going through what they're going through because someone a couple thousand years ago ate an apple.
My name is.
What's crazy is that all of them are Christians. And they clap behind that, because y'all know that makes sense, right? It makes sense. Why would everybody from millennial on, from what happened in a garden with two people that they claim was the first two people, right? So the first two people, if this was the first two people and God said something and they didn't follow it to the T, why would he want to punish everybody from that lineage? Everybody. That would mean everybody. And why? So we all are in sin based on not what we've done, right? Remember free will. Remember that free will? So we got free will, but not really, right? Because we already punished based on something that we didn't do. Now, let me tell you this, though. Because, see, it's just how I convince people sometimes to think differently. You Christians should be more along the lines of what I got to say when I say this, right? If we are talking about free will and people being held accountable for things that was done, that we do, our free will, it will make sense that God may do what he's doing, hold us accountable even millennia later, because maybe there is reincarnation, right? Maybe we did do something in a previous life that the next life we're being punished for. And then that will make sense if you say, well, those babies who are born suffering with leukemia, all types of cancers that's riddling their body, you might be able to say, well, in their previous life, they was horrible people. And now they're being born again, and this is what they deserve. They deserve what they're getting now because of how they lived before. You know, if that to be true, right? I'm not sure if that's true or not as far as that, but I'm just saying that's when you can say, well, them babies, you know, the way they live, they was terrible people. Maybe one of them was Hitler in his previous life. He came back, and when he came back, he had to suffer all his life from infancy, right? But if that's true, that would also make our world a more just world. It would clear a lot of shit up. Imagine that even though you might be able to scam people now, kill people and get away with it, all that shit, right? Well, you gotten away with it. They didn't know you did it. You somebody else doing your time or whatever. But imagine if even if you don't get caught, you don't get caught in this world, but you know the next time you come around, you know it could be worse than worse. It could be the most terrible life ever in your experience, right? That you will live. And I think that may straighten some people out. Because you know, once you dead, people don't be giving a damn. They be like, if I die, I die. Ain't no more suffering, ain't no more this, ain't no more hunger, ain't no more this. But if they just knew that when they're reborn, and they will be reborn, right? That that's when they might get struck down, baby, with the most. You know what I'm saying? They will also treat people differently because you might be white in this society, right? And you want to be a white supremacist, you want to lynch people and shit. Well, just wait, because the next time you hear, you might end up being an actual black person. And you just set it up where the world is against said groups of people. Or you might end up being reborn as that group of people, as your punishment. Until we get it right to where people are, have the rights and the freedoms to, to make sure that they don't harm others and they're able to live their life for happiness. People will think about what they do, because whether they get punished in this life or not, they will get punished in the next. They will get punished in the next. Reincarnation could be the one that changes the belief of it. Could be the one thing that actually changes people's mindset in this world. Because they have a lot of people who want to burn it down. They say it. You hear people, right? They don't give a damn about nobody at no time. It's just all them. They don't give a damn. Listen, I can't wait. I want to see some of these people when they get just a tad bit older. I want to see like Big J when he like 50, 60, right? That's not even that old, but I don't think he's gonna live that long. But because he's not gonna live that long. He's not gonna touch 55. I already seen it. Okay. Because he his heart, high blood pressure, and diabetes over there. Okay. And so I'm not wishing that on him. I'm just letting him know he need to go to the doctors and take care of himself. But you can damn well know that man got high blood pressure. But what I'm saying though, let me push play. Let me stop being messy.
Julie, I live in Sheepshead Bay. Last year in 6th grade,
This episode of the Dr. Dap Show is brought to you by Alloy Health.
No, we're
Let's
not
be
doing
real
that.
for a
We're
second.
not doing that.
Aging can be $20 off of your first order.
The concept of the Christian hell is both illogical and immoral. Hi, I'm Casey.
I'm Angie.
I'm Shadil.
I'm Chinasa.
I'm Jillian.
Nice to meet you. So, the concept of the Christian hell is both illogical and immoral. So, two parts here. Illogical, I think from that, I really find the idea of omniscience with God, which is the Christian God is everywhere. And also the Christian understanding of hell is defined as a separate, well, in many definitions, defined as a separation from God. I don't think that that is logical. It doesn't make sense in the parameters of that logic. And then immoral, I do not see any moral justification for an eternity of torture. Again, this is the widest understanding of the Christian hell. We are totally open to talk about different iterations. There are other kinds of hell, but from the majority of the understanding of Christian hell, illogical and immoral.
Say hello to Butterfly Shrimp, now on Faves for only $5. Love that chicken from Popeyes.
A part of your argument speaks to the proportionality of punishment, and I wanted to bring you back to some real life examples of punishment.
Now this is, I think this might be the portion. Yeah, y'all look at, because these women, they're gonna contradict each other, okay? But listen to them well, okay? Listen, remember, they all are Christians, same Bible and everything, but you're gonna notice that on certain things, these ministers have played around, like they take something that is said in the text, and then they give you a wave so you can envision what the Bible is saying. But you're gonna find that these mofos is about to disagree. Same religion, y'all. Same Bible, y'all. And this is the one, this is the prompt that made me be like, wow. Okay. Wow. And you're gonna see how they stretch it. Like the one that's talking now, she gonna start talking about how she was a prosecutor. And so now remember, the prompt is about hell. And what the prompt is at the top, it says the concept of the Christian hell is both illogical and immoral, right? That's the prompt. Let's listen to what these women about to say. Ooh, they just they shouldn't have done. They shouldn't have had this conversation, baby. Okay, here we go.
Punishment that are not exactly commensurate to the proportion. A part of your argument speaks to the proportionality of punishment, and I wanted to bring you back to some real life examples of punishment that are not exactly commensurate to the proportionality of the time that it took to commit the crime.
Now, you heard what she did? I heard what you were saying, but I want to bring you here. I know you talk about the Bible and Jesus or God and hell and heaven, but I want to talk about here on earth with judges and lawyers, and that's what she basically just said. She said, I want to bring you where I want to bring you to. I know you spoke about that, but let me bring you here. Okay, so it's so crazy. Here we go.
I like to say that I have a prosecutorial background. I was a prosecutor for a few years, so I understand how crimes are done, and a lot of things are taken into consideration when determining that proportionality. For example, if a criminal walks into the court and they have...
If anybody could tell me what she's talking about, how they have to do with hell, actual hell, the biblical hell, the Christian's hell, okay?
Have a history of doing that same crime, we do what's called enhancing their punishment. Because they have a history of doing the same thing, we get to take that into context. And I think what happens is when this conversation comes up as it relates to the proportionality specifically, I cannot say that word today, we like to reduce
crimes against God, which is what the Christian understands as sin, to these instances and these moments and these minor things. But in reality, all sin and all wrongdoing is sin against an eternal God. So if you sin against an eternal God, I do think it naturally follows that there are eternal consequences associated with that. Even when you look at the crimes that are done against certain public figures, like as a previous prosecutor, there's a different sentencing range for harm against a prosecutor or against a judge. And it's not because they're better than anyone, but it's because of what they represent. If a judge is representing the law and enacting the law, if a crime that is done against the judge is measured out, it is a defiance against the law itself. So when you say that it is, I guess, illogical to have the punishment be eternal when we are talking about an eternal God, I think it fails to take into those things into consideration. And I also want to say one thing that people may not always consider is the inertia of the soul. If, for example, someone hates God, who's to say they're going to stop hating God for eternity? The idea is that my position here on earth is only a precursor of what my position and my perspective is going to be for an eternity. And if God is a God that is loving, I think the most loving thing that he could do is to respect a person's free will. If you didn't want God in the past, why would it make sense for you to want God in the future? We have to understand that naturally we are eternal. We have an eternal soul. And so
what she said, if you didn't want God in the past, it makes sense that you wouldn't want God in the future. Is that what she just said? If you didn't want God in the past, why would you want God in the future? I thought we have free will. Thought the reason why there's churches, ministries, and things like that is to convince people who may not even know God to come and now get to learn God. But she's saying it. God says, if you didn't want him in the past, then you're not going to want him in the future. That's what that woman just said. Let me rewind it a little bit. Damn.
Eternity. The idea is that my position here on earth is only a precursor of what my position and my perspective is going to be for an eternity. And if God is a God that is loving, I think the most loving thing that he could do is to respect a person's free will. If you didn't want God in the past, why would it make sense for you to want God in the future? We have to understand that naturally we are eternal. We have an eternal soul. And so we're gravitating towards eternity. It just depends on where we're going. And the things that I stated before are things that I think we have to take into consideration.
So I'm not sure.
Like if we have an internal soul, eternity, right? Then why do people think that once you die, it's over? That and in order, why would God have you caught in heaven? You know what I mean? Like, I think it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous. I think, there will be more people by now in heaven and or hell than who's in the world right now. And every time we all die, it get more and more populated. Eventually, these things will just be so filled with people, but that don't make sense to me. It don't make sense. It makes more sense that yes, you die, and maybe if you go to heaven for a period of time, get your judgment, and then your judgment maybe what are you gonna do next? Are you going back to earth? And what are you gonna be when you come back to earth? Are you gonna be a bug for a period of time, a tree for thousands of years, or hundreds of years, should I say? Are you gonna be one of the mammals, right? Are you gonna, because they got different type of mammals? You might be a fish, you might, a bird, what are you gonna be? Or are you gonna be a human again? And to me, that makes more sense. Then you die, and then now you just gonna be in heaven with your family members, the same family members that you may not have gotten along with from the jump. Now you eternally just with them. Okay, I don't know. This don't sound like heaven would be that great and much fun. So I think after I die, I would prefer to come back somewhere. Maybe we'll treat animals different. We'll treat things different. If we know for one moment that our next life, that could be our sentence. I don't know. That's just my thoughts, though. You ain't gotta listen. I'm not here to convince anybody of anything, y'all. And you have a right to your thoughts, I have a right to mine. I'm just the one on the mic. That's all. Everybody could come up and give y'all opinions too, though. So I'm not trying to persuade y'all to believe what I believe. Okay? And that's all I want to say. And we're gonna keep it pushing.
That again, this is kind of going into, because we have free will, therefore this scope and magnitude of suffering, in this case in the case of hell, resonates. I'm not sure that tracks, because again, this goes back to another component of the concept of the Christian hell being immoral, is because I think it is immoral for a creator being to set up a system in which people would end up suffering forever after that creator being created those people. Yes, free will exists. Free will was created by God according to Christian understanding. Everyone who was going to be on these paths of eternal torture were created with the knowledge and understanding by a supposedly perfectly moral creator being, and that logic doesn't track to then therefore create them, know that they would supposedly use their free will for eternal damnation. And again, we are finite beings. There are atrocities that are committed on this world that are felt for generations. I mean, generations upon generations of time due to one person in some cases, or a multitude of people and their actions and their choices. That is certainly not to be downplayed. There is no conceptualization of an eternity, of a never-ending amount of time that is justifiable for even generations, because it's long for us to think of generations of harm, but that is nothing. It's literally nothing in the face of an eternity. So why would a creator being who is supposedly perfectly moral create these people knowing and creating them anyway? Not just that they were going to be damned forever. I guess we'll stick with the prompt, that they'll be damned forever. I don't think that's moral.
For the same reason that anyone procreates. When you have a baby, you know that there's a possibility that this child could grow up to be a Hitler, or they could grow up to be a Martin Luther King. But because of the outpouring of love.
You heard that? So she's talking about God and his decisions to who have the knowledge and everything to create beings who he already know, right? Because he's all knowing. He already know they're gonna be this Hitler. He already know they're gonna be, they're gonna commit the crimes and atrocities that they're gonna end up committing ahead of time, because he's all knowing, all seeing, right? She's now bringing that to a mother and a father who knows that their child could become a Hitler or a Martin Luther King, because they just take the chance of their child being whatever the child end up being. That does not correlate. It doesn't go together. It doesn't go together. It's ridiculous.
That you have in your heart for you and possibly your spouse. Anyone procreates. When you have a baby, you know that there's a possibility that this child could grow up to be a Hitler, or they could grow up to be a Martin Luther King. But because of the outpouring of love that you have in your heart for you and possibly your spouse, you decide to procreate, make a child, essentially like God did, making us in his own image. So God does see the future. God is also loving. And because of the outpouring of love that he had, he made a decision to have creation, to have them made. And as a result of that,
she admitted that God knows the future. So she says that God knows the future. Okay.
One thing that I won't say it's dismissive, but one thing that you kind of just skirt to the side is the fact that we being created in his image necessarily means that just as he has volition, we have volition. So if God is loving and he wants to have pure love reciprocated back, it's necessarily free will is necessary to that equation. We can't just be created without any real meaningful choice. Otherwise, you claim that you want to be a robot, but I don't believe that. You're too passionate. You're very passionate. You're very articulate. You think things through. I don't believe. Obviously, that's a
She's not even on the prompt.
hypothetical, but I don't believe that you would be comfortable.
My computer tripping. My computer tripping.
With not having a free will for the sake of not having sin or consequences or suffering, like in the past prompt. So that's to answer that specific point.
I was saying that I would give up my free will for the sake of any and all of other people suffering. It wasn't really like my personal circumstances. But again, going back to the free will, I don't think that an all-powerful God is limited at all, right, conceptually. So the parents, that's what it was. So you were saying it's just like a parent having a child and not knowing if they were going to be Hitler or Martin Luther King Jr. Many differences there, but probably the key one for this argument is that God would know. God would know, and therefore would end up intentionally, I guess, creating Hitler. So I don't agree with like that analogy. I understand your point, and you know we can have a separate conversation about justice in general. But my question was, is there free will in heaven?
Free will in heaven?
Yeah.
I thought we were talking about hell.
Right. This is related.
Yes, there's free will in heaven. But
There is free.
She said, yes, there's free will in heaven. She said, yes, there's free will in heaven.
Free will in heaven.
yes, there's free will everywhere.
To turn away from the
Yes,
Creator?
to turn away.
Okay, so this.
So if you got free will in heaven, which means if you decide you want to turn away, you don't believe, you don't want to be there. Right? Because, and the reason she switched it to heaven, because do you have free will in hell? Right? If she would have said that, so she making a point, and here we go.
Heaven?
Yeah.
I thought we were talking about hell.
Right. This is related.
Yes, there's free will in heaven. But
There is free will in heaven.
yes, there's free will everywhere.
To turn away from the
Yes,
Creator?
to turn away.
Okay, so this concept of eternity and eternal bliss is not accurate according to Christian understanding?
Well-
you could leave heaven?
Well, yeah, you can get kicked out of heaven.
You can get kicked out of heaven.
So
Okay, I didn't know that. I don't think that's the general understanding of the Christian heaven and hell, so we might be having a different conversation.
I do
So she said, yes, you could get kicked out of heaven. Baby, I ain't never heard that one before. I thought like when you go to heaven, you really, you get rid of free will and everything, because now you there in the glory, you're happy, you know what I mean? You reach superior wealth, health, and everything. You just gonna be happy. And she says you got free will. So let's say somebody's too happy and they don't want to be happy no more. Okay, they don't want to be happy no more. So then I guess she said they can then get kicked, because maybe they might act up there. And can you imagine in heaven if people have free will to do what they want and they just start having a good old time, and then they, because if you got free will, you could break the rules, right? You can do anything you want, and then all of a sudden God have to evict you out of heaven, baby. You gotta get evicted out of heaven. Lord, I thought when they preach heaven, it's supposed to be the ultimate it's the ultimate prize. It's like you get to heaven and you have done something, even though on earth you might be getting cheated on, you getting stabbed, you got murdered. Before you got murdered, your peoples got murdered. You just getting, your life is just hard. You're just suffering. But it's okay to suffer, because in the glory of God, you will be free of all of that, right? And then you go there and something can happen. Somebody can accuse you of something you ain't really do, or maybe you did do it, because you got all that free will that she says you got. And then for some reason, they call you back before the judgment day, right? You have a judgment day on this day, but apparently you can have another judgment day where they kick your ass out of heaven. Oh, baby, that sounds like some shit that sounds like some new shit to me. She said you can get kicked out of heaven. And people jumped in on that shit real quick on the same side. On the same side, because the atheist is like, oh, I never heard that before. Oh, can you imagine telling people that they can get kicked out of heaven? Oh, they're going to be a lot of Christians who are going to be up in arms about that. Wait, what? I thought that's the ultimate. I thought it's going to be forever peace and solidarity, and I'm going to be able to be with my family. You telling me once I get there, I got to go through this all over again? I got free will all over again? I might get kicked. Oh, Lord. Here we go.
This is related.
Yes, there's free will in heaven. But
there is free will in heaven.
yes, there's free will everywhere.
To turn away from the
Yes,
Creator?
to turn away.
Okay, so this concept of eternity and eternal bliss is not accurate according to Christian understanding?
Well-
you could leave heaven?
Well, yeah, you can get kicked out of heaven.
You
just
can
like
get kicked out of heaven.
So
Okay, I didn't know that. I don't think that's the general understanding of the Christian heaven and hell, so we might be having a different conversation.
I disagree with that. I would say that in heaven, when you reach that place, your will is surrendered and your will is united with the will of God. So there's not a need or a desire to have a will in that sense. It's extrapolating what we have here onto the heavenly realm.
So we're talking about the surrender of free will. Okay, so that's kind of my point here. And also I would like to point out that apparently God can create a perfect utopia where people have sort of a surrender of free will, which is still a choice, which is technically free will. So again, the logic of heaven and hell really does break down with that.
I do want to say, there are more.
Right, y'all heard what she said, right? She said, well, if you're saying, but they were saying that you have to have free will in order to have this, we have free will, and because we have free will, that's why everything's breaking down. That's why the suffering. And the young lady said, well, I would give up my free will if it would stop suffering. Okay? Suffering, not just her suffering, but everybody's suffering. I would give up my free will if it ends everybody's suffering. And then they said, well, nah, you don't want to be a robot. So God said, you don't want to be a robot. I don't think you want to really get rid of your free will. And then, so because they're saying, well, you don't want to get rid of your free will, even though you're claiming it. So then she goes to, does the people in heaven have their free will? And then one person says yes. And then she said, the others say, no, I don't really believe that. I don't believe that. You give up your free will once you're in heaven. You become one with God, with the Creator, right? And there's no need for free will or anything. And so then she says, and that's my point. You don't need to have free will on earth neither. People will survive, people will live, and people won't be suffering. And that's what she was saying. She was like, yeah, if he could do it in heaven, then why can't he do it on earth? And that's what she's saying. She's basically saying this God that people believe in, it being this just God and all-knowing God, he's not really just. Because he's holding us responsible for some things that two people did. Only two. The first two people, based on the Bible, right? Based on the Bible, King James Version, there's two people. Those two people are the two people everybody's getting punished for, and all the suffering in the world through millennia comes from just those two people, who, by the way, God himself created. He already knew they was going to commit those atrocities, right? The apple, so he bit of the apple, and that's all they took. But even if that's the case, when they shouldn't have ate the apple, he already knew they was going to eat the apple. That's probably why he told them, don't eat the apple. And he saw them eating the apple when he gave them free will. He knew they were going to eat the apple. He probably the one who suggested the apple. She may not have never even, so you could eat of all these fruit trees, all of this, you could eat all of this at your heart's content. But see that one over there? Damn, that one over there, don't touch that one. Why is the apple tree that we shouldn't touch in the Garden of Eve? Why is it even there? Ooh, why is it even there? And that is because it's there with all these other apple trees, orange trees, pears trees, all these fruit trees and everything, enough to feed a nation and shit. Why he points out that tree and said, just don't eat of this one. He made people curious, right? He knows he put that in us, curiosity, what will happen. And then on top of that, he knew that his son, right, his or an angel, another angel, right, would come in and slither in and be like, Hey, hey. I know he said, "Oh, eat this apple be on this tree that he put here, and he even sent me here. He knew I was gonna be here, even if he didn't send me here. He knew I was gonna slither through and have a conversation with you. He knew I was gonna tempt you. I was gonna taunt you. I was gonna say, hey, try this apple." Baby, listen, that Bible is funny. That Bible is funny. As soon as you tell anybody that he's all knowing, he knows what's gonna happen before it happens. That is the end of the story, babe. That's the end of the story. That means everything that anybody has ever done, they were supposed to do it. That he wrote Hitler was supposed to happen. Right? You know what I mean? They can't act like they mad at Hitler. They can't be mad at the murderers on the street. They playing their part. Because God knew they was gonna do it. They still here. He knew they were gonna do it way before they were born. In fact, he probably wrote the script. He wrote the script that we all are playing. Okay, and that's based on them. I'm not saying that's the facts. I'm just saying if we base that on the Bible, that's what it is, baby. Ain't no doubt. That's what it is. Okay, here we go.
More than 45,000 different like interpretations of Christianity that exist today. So there,
Of heaven and hell really does break down with that.
I do want to say, there are more than 45,000 different like interpretations of Christianity that exist today.
45,000 different interpretations of the Bible. Wow. I would have been thinking it's a few dozen or something. 45,000 different interpretations of the same book. How could it be? How could it be? So that means if there's different interpretations, then that means there's different storylines, and that means your interpretation might be incorrect. What you learn might be incorrect. That's a whole nother issue within itself. Because people be holding firm, baby. They hold firm in their religion. But how could you if there's just so many different ways of looking at it? The belief system, how it's preached. Anyway, that's a large
So
number.
there,
Baby. Here we
in
go.
that means there are multiple opinions on what hell actually looks like. The Bible does describe that hell exists. Some people believe that means that non-believers are burning up in hell for all of eternity. I don't believe that personally. And the Bible it actually doesn't really describe that. It describes that like the judgment, like there is judgment. There's no denying that judgment does happen. People are judged for what they do on earth, according to like Christian faith.
So people are judged, right? Remember what I mentioned, how you judge? You get your judgment, you go through your judgment day, and then you are assigned. If you've been good, get the heavenly part where you're able to may make some decisions on where you go. You may have some choices on what your next life gonna be like. And if you happen to go down below hell, then you don't have no choice. You just thrown back in the mix. You're you damned to repeat life again with no choice on how. No choice on how. Your ass might be a tree for hundreds of years. I think if I had to choose between being a tree for hundreds of years and going through humanity, I don't know which one I would choose. Because after the tree dies, right? I come back for judgment again and get placed somewhere else again. Maybe society needs 100 years You know, I might feel like I need 100 years of just resting, producing, providing. You know what I mean? Because trees provide. Okay, they produce. Even if it's not a fruit tree, it provides shade. It helps provide oxygen, right, to the earth. The root, yeah, trees provide. So some people might say, well, damn, that last life was hard. I think I'm gonna be a tree, okay? I'm okay with being a tree for a couple 100 years, and I'll meet you in a couple 100 years, God. Okay? And then the 100 years go by, and then when I come back from being a tree, because I couldn't have committed any crimes against nature or God or anything, right? So now I may decide to want to become back into humanity. Or bird. I might want to fly. Okay, I might want to fly. Their lifespans are shorter than trees. Okay, trees' lifespans are, but then you could become some mammal, not mammals. You could become some fish, that lives for hundreds of years. You know, alligators that live for hundreds of years. You could become something, and you might have a choice. But if you go to hell, you ain't got no choice. You whatever they need, baby. They need some bugs, okay? They need you to be a fly, okay? Your ass might go through 100 years of going through all those things, okay? The things that maybe you hated, the things you had no problem killing for no reason, okay? That's what I think. That's more along the lines of what I believe. That makes more sense than everybody going either low or below or up top, and then you just gonna stay there for the rest of eternity. That would be a waste of energy, waste of resources, waste of just all kinds of things. Okay, here we go.
However, in Revelations, it only describes that the devil, the false prophet, and I believe the Antichrist are the ones who are thrown into the lake of fire, and they're the ones who are tormented forever and ever. Whenever it gets to the point when it talks about how the non-Christians are thrown into the lake of fire, it is the second death. It is described as like an ending. And I think even most atheists or agnostics today, you believe like whenever you die, what happens? It's just like everything's over.
No idea. I don't think there's sufficient evidence to make any positive claim that there is or isn't anything. I have no idea.
Okay, but in general, from what and I appreciate that. Thank you for speaking. But in general, I believe like the opinion is just like it's just nothing.
Oh, sure.
After.
Yeah.
Like for like in general, it's just nothing after. So whenever we get to applying like Christianity, there's the idea of like there's a resurrection for like judgment on Judgment Day. Everyone is resurrected. They are judged according to the law. Anyone who's not written in the Lamb's Book of Life, they are judged, and then they die a second death. But that means but it's not an eternal conscious torment, which I believe which is what you're talking about when you say the Christian iteration of hell, eternal conscious torment. I do believe that is actually something not of God. I do think that is immoral and not reflective of God's nature.
I think you bring up something really interesting, which is the
Oh, I don't know. Is it my computer? My internet might be acting up, y'all. Y'all with a problem.
What should we order?
Christian.
Tacos. Gochujang chicken.
Phone race for the order tonight. Why can't we have
Wonderless people. And so we're seeing that play out. I would say.
I don't know what just happened. It was on the second. What problem was on? Did y'all hear how the Christian at the end agreed? She said she agreed with our prompt. You know, that she agreed with the prompt. What prompt is this right here? And that's what made me. That's the one that I saw. It was the concept of hell. I was like, wow. And at the end, when the woman says, I agree with your prompt. Okay. It is illogical and immoral. Let me see.
Well done. Well done.
Let me see what happened.
Pharaoh literally saw the Hebrews thriving. They were literally doing according to what God said, to be fruitful, multiply, living in harmony, following in his way. And
let me clear something up about AI agents after using Monday.com for a week. First of all, they're going to make our jobs much easier, and they're going to take us.
And I hope that this may, make you want to do that.
I just would say that
Is the concept of free will who go against him, the angels, as you said, do they have free will? And if so,
stop hating God for eternity. The idea is that my position here on earth is only a precursor of what my position and my perspective is.
heaven and hell really does break down with that.
I do want to say, there are more than die a second death, but that means that, but it's not.
I guess what I'm asking is, do of the traditional understanding of the Christian hell is if you confess with your mouth and you believe in your heart that God rose Jesus from the dead, Romans 10:9 or 9:10, I don't know. I don't remember, but you will be saved. Thank you. So with that contingency there, with that understanding, can we choose our beliefs? To me, that is really the crux of, in that case, not necessarily in your understanding of hell, in that case, it is immoral to set up someone who can't choose their beliefs, because how does that work? And then therefore is sent to an eternity of torture. Because I guess what I would ask is do I choose personally to have pride in my heart?
I want to go back to your prompt. Hell wasn't intended for people. It was intended for God's angels and for those that were going against him, because they did have free will.
Okay, great. So is the concept of free will who go against him, the angels, as you said, do they have free will? And if so, I guess what I'm asking is, do angels have free will?
Yeah, angels have free will just like we have free will, because we're all his creation. And if you're against God, if you're not for God, you're against God. And there is a place for you. So God created everything and everybody to follow him and to serve him. If you're not a part of that plan, then there is a place for you. It wasn't intended for people, but if you want to follow that route, you can follow that route and you'll have the same ending.
So I love where this conversation is. I do want to get back on topic, but on the matter of heaven and legalities and the law, right? I want to just explain a little bit about what I believe what everything will look like in heaven. When we die as followers of Christ Jesus, those who obey his commandments, those who walk in his ways, there is a covenant that is made. Now, a covenant is an alliance. A covenant is a treaty. It is a legal term, okay? When we decide that we are going to obey the commandments of God, we have made a covenant. So when we walk in that covenant, observe that covenant, and obey that covenant, we have broken the covenant that sin made, that with Adam and Eve. We have broken that covenant that Adam and Eve made with sin, with Satan. So when we go to heaven, we no longer have the sinful covenant that we had binded at the very beginning. So with that in mind, I do want to talk about the law, because it is very, very important to think about that. When we go to heaven, right, the law will be reestablished. We will obey Sabbath. We will follow the 10 Commandments. This is just biblical prophecy. And it's also talked about throughout.
Well, I'm confused at what she's talking about. Because first, in order to do what she said to break the curse, you got to die. Okay? And then while you're dead, because they don't believe in reincarnation, right? Unless she's telling me she does, she's saying you got to die, and then you become a covenant with God. And now your curse is gone, but you're now dead. And remember, you don't get no free will or anything anymore. You're just one with God. So what is she talking about when she's saying you're going to do all these other things? You're going to follow the rules. You're going to follow the commandments and things like that. You ain't really got no choice, but you're dead. So those things don't even matter anymore. Let's see. Let's hear her say it again.
About that. When we go to heaven, right, the law will be reestablished. We will obey Sabbath. We will follow the...
When we go, she said, when we go to heaven, the laws reestablished, you gonna start obeying things. So we now got to even obey things in heaven. I thought we were going to be in peace. So she's saying you're gonna be in heaven, but then her talking points is what you're gonna do on earth when I don't know.
The 10 Commandments. This is just biblical prophecy. And it's also talked about throughout Genesis when Abraham is being promised his descendants through his seed. Now, that is a completely different topic. But when we think about the law and we think about morality, I did want to talk about your jewelry, because here's the thing. Do you know what the sigil necklace?
I believe it's for the goddess of Hecate.
So here's what I see. I study the occult. I do study religion.
It's just crazy, right? Because remember, told y'all this is what Christians do. So they know that they are Christians against one atheist. So they already know she's not Christian. Already said, and they've already proven, and she's about to prove it again. They like to judge. They like to judge. She want to take it all off the prompts, the reason why they're there, and now she wants to inform her of something that the woman may already know, and she gonna tell her. Let's see what she's gonna say. I haven't heard it. Okay.
Religion. These are the founding principles of our world's morality. So the 3 moons on your necklace, they symbolize the divine feminine, a triple deity.
Thank you.
Yeah. And on top of that, the pentagram represents Baphomet or the bull. So you have an androgynous sigil there. Now, let's talk about the formation of the law, because I do want to help you understand what it looks like on a term of morality. I want to help you understand that, because I know that you haven't, read your Bible in a little bit, and I hope that this may, make you want to do that.
It does something. See, the insults. Why she said she's not interested in reading the Bible. The woman sounds very educated. She knows a little bit about the Bible, maybe even a lot more. And now you want to inform her that what she has on, that's crazy. The gall of these people.
I just would say that if you call into question the legitimacy of hell because you feel like it's illogical, then it
Yeah.
undermines justice in general. If you don't agree or like the concept of hell, that's the one thing. But
Make you looks like on a term of morality. I want to help you understand that, because I know that you haven't, read your Bible in a little bit, and I hope that this may, make you want to do that.
I just would say that if you call into question the legitimacy of hell because you feel like it's illogical, then it undermines justice in general. If you don't agree or like the concept of hell, that's the one thing. But if we were talking about cause and effect and how logic follows certain formats, then we have to consider that there are consequences to our actions. And that's essentially what hell is.
But to interrupt, I'm sorry, but like the consequences of our actions, how the Bible describes it, the wages of sin is death.
Mm-hmm.
It's death. It doesn't say eternal conscious torment forever and ever. It is death. It is an ending. But the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ. So I think that's something that, like, what she's talking about is the fact that a lot of Christians believe that there are going to be billions of humans just tormented in hell forever and ever, while we are just in bliss in heaven. That's supposed to be something good, and that a good moral God, like Creator God, would agree to. And
the Planet Fitness Black Card. Access any location, bring a friend anytime, and recover in the Black Card Spa.
Midday rewards, late night treats. For ice cream party.
And that's the key, because I think the argument is that the concept of justice, I'm certainly not denying. I'm not an expert in justice, but I understand that there are consequences for actions. But if we take that to the step of the Christian understanding, a creator being who's supposedly perfectly moral created these people to make these terrible decisions to then end up in hell for eternity, whereas we've already established that there can be a perfectly lawful, according to this logic, a perfectly lawful where we have
My internet must be tripping.
free will kind of heaven without eternal torturing, to her point.
Well, the formation of the law came from
I know
obviously
because when I press certain things, it didn't just pop up. I'm probably lagging. I thought I rebooted. But I do have I have a lot of things going on, a lot of processing, right? I'm on Zoom, which is a resource hub. Then I'm sharing the screen, which means I'm on Zoom and YouTube, and I have on my cam through a whole nother app. And all of these are resource hubs, right? So so bear with me if it's lagging a little bit. I thought it was the internet, but it's not. Okay. But here we go. I like this conversation. They're having a great conversation, y'all. I like having a great conversation. I like hearing, I hear both sides, okay? Both of them, on both sides, they're giving great arguments. I just disagree fundamentally with one side, not because I disagree with Christians, but they're not giving their points is just not pointing. Okay, it's not. It wouldn't. Nobody except the one lady who ended up agreeing with her, and she's giving pushback and saying, yeah, most Christians believe that hell is this, and that's what she says. Most people believe hell is what I also understood hell to be, because that's what I heard that from Christians. I'm hearing in this space where, yeah, if you don't believe in God, then you gonna burn in eternal hell, right? And they and it's ridiculous. Like that, if you have a just God, then that wouldn't be what a just God would do. You see? And therefore, I'd be wondering, and they get mad if I ask, like, how do you know your God is a God? Because you might be following a demon. You know, because it don't sound like, I think when I hear about the creator, the God, right? One who cares. And by the way, there's different gods, right? If that there are things that I can say and people don't believe it. There are many gods. Before there was just one God, there was many gods. Not all the gods are just. In fact, some of them are very jealous. Some of them are, they want followers. You better follow them or there will be consequences. And why wouldn't this God be able to, this God is supposed to be the just God, all loving, all knowing, all this, all that, right? And if that's true, then we would see that, we would know that. There are other gods, you get to know the different gods, and different gods require different things, right? And they're able to help certain things. They got some gods that have nothing to do with when you die, but they might be able to help you with your health. And the reason why, if your health would be bad and you praying to God, there's one God for help with your health, you're not getting answered because you're not praying to the right God. You're not asking or requesting from the right God for that. Okay? And so then these Christians then said, well, he's too busy to answer any prayers. So then why are you praying? He's too busy to even hear your prayer. Then why, you know what I mean? Like, what? Anyway, listen, when you're grown, baby, because I had these questions when I was an adult. I'm sorry, when I was a child. When I was a child and in Sunday school, there was one, my question wasn't as they are today, I'm adult now, right? But when I was a child listening in Sunday school, and usually that's what we got to speak when you was a child. You ain't really get to speak to the congregation or nothing like that. The only thing we can do in the congregation is sit our asses down, shut up, or we could be on the quiet stand, where I was all the time on the quiet stand. Okay. And that's on one side of my family. Remember, I have two sides. One of them were religious, the other is spiritual. Okay. Anyway, so I was on the choir. When I went on one side of my family, I put on that robe. We went in the back. We ate breakfast at the church. We did Sunday school. And then the children was allowed to go with the congregation. Those of us who was in the choir went up on the choir stand. Okay. Anyway, I had questions. They wasn't the same questions that I have when I became an adult, but even as a child, I was able to listen, hear, and sense whether what they're saying makes sense or not. Because they tell us there's no magic in the world, and then they start telling us all about this magic being. Very magical. He turned water into wine. He turned one bread or wheat, whatever, into enough. While they tell us there's no such thing as magic. It was as simple as that for children. You start confusing children, and you didn't start brainwashing children, because you didn't tell them, well, they don't really have that in the world. today, but it was back then, right? And only for him. And then you start telling them, well, it's not for you to understand. You just have to take it. It's just in faith. Faith. That's all. You ain't got to. It ain't got to make sense to you. Just believe it. Just believe it. And it's almost like that belief that we think we could tell kids not to do something or do something, and all we got to do is say because I said so. When they say why, like why can't I go downstairs and cook? You know, and you be like, your ass is only 3 years old. You 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 know what I mean? Do you know how to cook? Yeah, my mom. Okay. Well, and what you gonna cook? Well, what you gonna cook, my mom? See, a kid's mind, he think he knows everything, how to do everything. And then when I start breaking it down and asking him questions, you find out that he's actually telling me to come down there and cook, and he want to help me make some pizza dough and something like that, which I've been doing with him since he was little. But you you gotta it's best to explain to your children. That's how you teach them to work their brain, to figure things out. To I'm not using the right words. I'm trying to find the right word. To be able to damn, just when you hear something and it doesn't register, it just don't make sense. Then you question. Mama, why you do this? Mama, why you do that? I don't just say because I want to, right? He's asking because he wants to learn. He wants to understand. I know a lot of a lot of parents that I've seen, because I said so. My mom never did that to us, you know. If we asked her why something, she would explain it. Now, of course, she can't tell me to bring my ass inside and go to bed, and then I'd be like, why? You know what I mean? It wasn't that type of thing. It'd be like, go in the kitchen and go get this and do this way. And when she telling me to do something a certain way, I'm like, why I need to cut it up like this? And she'll explain why you don't touch the stove, because it's hot, you will get burned. Why, Dad, why I gotta put the butt of the shotgun in my shoulder this way? He says, because it's about to kick and it'll knock you on your ass if you don't stand a certain way. So the question why shouldn't be thought of when it's coming from kids or anybody as an insult, and when you gotta tell them because I say so. Now, if you can't explain it to why, I don't know what to tell you. Okay, I don't know what to tell you, but all I'm saying is when I was young in church, I had questions, and there was not always an answer, or the answer just sometimes didn't make sense. And just imagine when the ones who just make up any story just for it to make sense. Okay. They start talking about Peter Pan and shit like that. What? Now that I remember the Peter Pan type of stories. That makes sense when you're really young. I've been going, when you're really, really young and you got a child like mine. And so they give you examples that's befitting, age appropriate, I guess. But then you get a little older and you remember the Peter Pan story, and then now then they start explaining it a little different, age appropriate. But then now you become grown, and your questions become a little more in depth. Your brain is sharper than when you was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? And they don't have no answers, and now they just start telling you just gotta believe. That's crazy. Here we go.
Story of Moses in Exodus. Okay. And why I found your necklace so very intriguing is because the become the leader of the Torah was based on genocide to an androgynous God. So when you've mentioned a lot the abuse of children, and I love that you have this moral sense in your.
Let me stop the share. Stop and share. Stop and share. Sorry. Yeah, even this. Why this is so big? What's going on? Wait a minute. I don't even know if y'all was able to see me sewing or not. My computer is tripping over here, babe. Yeah, this don't look good. It's saying preparing live stream. It's a big screen showing that cup. I don't know what y'all see on the outside. But my computer is acting a fool. Let me see what that looks like. Why is it so big? I don't know. I don't want to end it, but I think it's my computer. There's nobody up here for me to keep it going, so I can reboot real quick. Because if I leave out, it's going to end the stream with nobody here. Let me see. Let me see what y'all see, but it don't matter. Like, it don't matter what y'all see. I still seem like I still have to reboot. Y'all might see something completely different than what I see. Oh, I don't know what's going on. Let me think what I could do. I can't reboot. As soon as I leave out of here, it's gonna end. I'm not coming back. If I end this, I ain't coming back. I ain't gonna lie. I ain't gonna hold you, okay? I want to get some of this stuff done. Okay, I'm gonna go over there on the Facebook and finish on. I'll give y'all the link. Actually, let me show y'all so y'all, if y'all want to go look at it, which would probably be best than me talking over it anyway. So we give them some support. Let me share it. Wait, maybe. Oh, wait. Okay. Let me exit out of this first. Maybe if I turn the cam off and then let's see how that reacts. Okay, the camera off. I still don't help this. How long I've been up here? 2 hours? Yeah. Let me grab the I'm gonna share it so y'all can see. I'm not grabbing the link. Okay, I'm gonna just show y'all what to type in. We'll go look and see. It is a good conversation. Okay, one atheist versus 20 Christian women. The bridge. Okay, and person is Dr. Daff, the Dr. Daff show. Okay, I've been watching her for a minute. The show anyway, and there's a few more that I watch and I really like. Okay, I've been watching them for a little bit. And if y'all want to know, she does have it where you can go into the different prompts. So you go here. I think we went through 2 prompts. We're on the 3rd one. I did reboot it, but maybe I should have. Now rebooting it and turning it on. Maybe I should have turned it off. Sometimes I just reboot it, and it may not even have rebooted, to be honest. Because I wasn't paying attention. I hit reboot, and I came back and just signed in. But yeah, it's starting to act a little better now. It's acting faster. Well, let me see what I have. Let me make sure nobody hacking me and shit. Okay, cool. No, nobody doing anything. My Zoom is acting up. Okay. Okay, anyway, it don't matter. Y'all saw who it is, right? The Daft, whatever it was, Dr. Daft show. Check it out. Go look at it. I am gonna go and finish looking at it while I sew. And I'm gonna be doing my damn thing over here, okay? Because the truth is, I should have gotten way past where I'm at with this stuff in my, you know, I, I'm sewing all slow. I already was having a problem with one of the fabrics, but I'm not sewing that one anymore. So I have fabrics that I'm not having problems with. Um, I should be way past where I'm at. I'm gonna get this done. Okay, get this done. And I'm out. Y'all have a good day, okay? I don't feel like cracking no jokes on no fools, but if I come back, I'm gonna be on that nigga's head. And I'm talking about Big J, okay? Big J, you got 30 days. 30 days, okay? I think we might be on day number, if I add up from last week, this week, you might be like on this might be like day 8 or something, okay? But actually, since you came up here, I really don't even need to really talk about it anymore. All I gotta do is put the little clips out, clip it out where you mention the stuff that you mentioned. Okay. And yeah. And then I'm gonna go over there in this other sector and let them people know what you done and what you done said. Okay. Let them know that you lied on your wee wee. You lied on your little wee wee. It ended up lying, saying that you had a whole sex with an individual that you are now referring as it, which is ridiculous. Okay. You was in love. You was in love with said person. Shit, you was in love. Now you fall out of love so goddamn fast. I mean, that ain't shit. That ain't you ain't shit. So you know, fell out of love just in an instant. I love somebody, you know, I'm gonna love them, and if I find out that the person may not be exactly who they say they are, which is that happens a lot. You know, we never know the individual until we get to know them. Okay, so most of the time you finding out some shit you ain't even know. You've been knowing this motherfucker for 5 years. Y'all been dating, and then y'all get married, and you start learning some shit you ain't never even considered to think of could be true. It's just the way life is. You understand? That's life for you, baby. That's life for you. But my question is this, okay? And I'm trying to be real nice with it. How many inches is that? Let me see. I might be able to. I need 2 inches. No. Yeah. 2 inches. 2 inches. That's about 3. I need a little more on that. And put a little more on it. And I put a little more stank on that. Okay. Make it a little longer. Anyway, how you fall out of love with the love of your life? Somebody you into, somebody you was thirsty for, somebody you was like, I'll take care of you. Man, look, I wish Cyber had that channel stuff where we could go through when my aunt was over there and when Big J would go over there and talk to the love of his life. That's what I wish. But okay. He done took down all the evidence on us, and not only did he take it down, but he deleted it. I don't delete things unless it's something that get me in trouble. I wouldn't delete it. I got all kinds of shit. I ain't got the time to be going through all that stuff though. I tried to go through some stuff earlier today, and I was like, damn. I got videos of who some of the things that I've been saying on certain people, but I'm like, I ain't got time to be worried about that shit. Nobody care anyway, for real. Nobody be caring. Well, I just need to put this in the center. Okay, cool. Anyway, I hope y'all have a good day. I wonder what's the date. Hey Siri, what's the date?
It's Wednesday, August 19th, 2026.
Okay, cool. Both series is going. One of them faster than the other. Ain't that simple? But my iPad is newer than my phone. Just got the iPad for Christmas. Either Christmas or my birthday. Somebody for me. I think it may have been Christmas. It may have been my birthday. Who knows? And that's that machine. I'll just clean this machine. That's my fault. I'm about to blame the machine. It's just fabric. Okay, it caught on to something. So was about to get upset. I'm about to blame the goddamn machine. I know. I just cleaned her. I just did it. I just cleaned her yesterday or the day before. She should be purring like a kitten, but her ass is over here loud as hell because I'm sewing. Did I change the needle? I did change the needle. She is loud. It's really because how fast I'm going. That's what it is. I'm not. Yeah. Let me end this stream now. I'm sorry, I'm sewing, so I can't do two things at the same time using the same two hands. Okay.